hear about it more in the news, but Xbox had a developer showcase this week, which was kind of like their version of a direct, and I thought it was a pretty good show. I quite enjoyed the pace and briskness of it. But as part of that show, Tango Gameworks, the developers of The Evil Within, most recently Ghostwire Tokyo, and led by the famed director Shinji Mikami, one of the core creators of the Resident Evil series. They showed off a new game called Hi-Fi. What is it? Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush.
And then they shadow dropped it. They were like, it is out now on Game Pass and everywhere on PC. And it's like, that's cool.
Yep.
So Hi-Fi Rush is a very different game than you probably expect from Tango Gameworks, who have mostly dabbled in horror and survival horror or horror adjacent. Like The Evil Within was a homage to like Resident Evil, whereas Ghostwire Tokyo was more like an experiment in horror in an open world, which I didn't think really worked that well, but I don't think that's because the horror was bad. I just think the game was bad. Hi-Fi Rush is super not like any of that. It is super bright, colorful, cel-shaded. When I first saw it come on screen, I was like, oh my God, Tango Gameworks is doing a Sunset Overdrive sequel. Like that was my immediate thought.
Yeah.
But it's not that. It is instead a blend between hack and slash and rhythm games. So like one of Matty's favorite games from last year was Metal Hellsinger, which was an FPS mixed with rhythm. You had BPM, which was kind of the same thing, also from last year. And this is kind of just another take on that idea, but from a hack and slash perspective. So it is a linear game. I've seen a lot of people talk about saying it reminds them of Ratchet and Clank. And yep, I get that because it's like platforming in an open world and then a combat encounter and then like witty dialogue and just like a good blend of like just fun color and low stakes to a lot of the action. But the action is where things are like really, really good. So everything in the world is like moving to a beat. So you can see things in the environments are like moving according to a beat. Your character, Chai, like, T, he moves his foot according to the beat. You have a little robot that flashes according to the beat. Your health bar there's a lot of things on screen that remind you where the beat is. Let me just put it that way. And all of the combats and even some of your platforming goes according to that rhythm. So when you press an attack button, no matter if you missed the beat when you press the attack or whether you got it spot on, your attack will land on the beat. So, for example, if you miss your initial timing on the attack, you know that the next one you need to press as soon as your attack lands because that's on the beat. And that's how you can kind of keep combos going. Your heavy attack works in the same way, but because of how long it takes, you have to wait a beat before you press again to kind of sync up with the beat. And it sounds like a lot to keep in mind when you're playing, but it becomes very natural very quickly. Just because of how well designed in terms of how it feels. Like your attacks connect with a really good vibration. So it gives you a real good muscle memory indication of this is when I should press again and press again and press again. And then they start just layering things on top of that. So when you get to the end of a combo string, you will have this like short pause where you have these like two rings that come closer together and overlap. And when they overlap, if you press attack again, you'll do like a special higher damage form of an attack to finish that combo. And then you can obviously start mixing things up. Like you can do 2 light attacks, 2 heavy, where you have to like think about the timing of that because light attacks are a lot quicker. Heavy, you have to wait for the next one, go in again. But the more you stay on beat and the more you mix up your attack patterns, the more damage you're going to do and the higher score you're going to accrue. So each sort of combat encounter has a score at the end, similar to something in Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, where it's like, oh, you got an S rank or an A rank for time or a B rank for how well you kept on time with each of your attacks. So yeah, I've only played the first act and a bit. I played like a first big boss fight, which was quite fun. And I'm still kind of like getting into the the swing of things with regards to like feeling comfortable with how to attack with the rhythm. But when you get it, like it's an extremely satisfying combat system, which I think like really drives the game forward.
Yeah.
The platforming I think is fine. A lot of people seem to love the platforming. I find the jumping a bit weird.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not used to it, but I feel like it's a bit imprecise at times. But like the actual platforming sections are fun enough because again, they're to the beat. So
Yeah.
there's some sections where you have to dodge like hazards, and it's much quicker if you keep your dodge timing towards the beat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it feels good when you pull some of that stuff off. And then you can incorporate that into combat as well, where if you just want to keep your like score counter up, just by dodging attacks on the beat, you'll keep it going like up, up. So you don't always have to be attacking. You just have to be like aware of what's going on around you. So it's cool. It's got a really neat, like breezy story so far, and the world is really interesting and colorful, and it's got phenomenal music.
Yeah.
The boss fight I had yesterday had a track from Nine Inch Nails, which was just like perfect for that.
Nice.
So they've got a really good licensed soundtrack along with like some original music that is used to like kind of pepper the rhythm of the game. So it's a good time. I can see why a lot of people are really digging it, because I think it's the case of it coming out suddenly and surprisingly and then being good on top of it. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people, when they saw Tango Gameworks and saw this, they're like, "You, this is weird."
I did laugh because in case you forgot or for context, Tango Gameworks I don't know if you did mention it, but they did The Evil Within 1 and 2 and last year's Ghostwire Tokyo. And just reminder, Ghostwire Tokyo was a very middling / average game. Like really fun. Wasn't a bad game, wasn't a particularly standout game. I did laugh though when Hi-Fi Rush was announced. It's like from the makers of The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2. And then just no mention of Ghostwire Tokyo. I was like, ooh.
in some ways, it also makes sense because Ghostwire Tokyo is not even on Xbox yet.
I know, but it's just funny. I was like, you guys made the game too. Like, it's okay. You know, it'll
you can admit it.
It'll
fine.
further emphasize how different Hi-Fi Rush is from your standard, you know, like horror fare. But yeah, just so I haven't played it yet myself. But to your point, I remember playing Metal Hellsinger, which, like you mentioned, is a rhythm FPS. It's the same thing where initially playing the game, it is very weird to force yourself to try shoot based on the beat. But after like an hour or two, it feels natural and it's very satisfying. You know, you really get into it and you are all of a sudden like dodging and shooting in time with the beats, and it makes it like a very satisfying feel. So I can see that this game having, you know, that same effect, like you said. So I'd be very keen to try it out.
I do think fans of like hack and slash will really appreciate it, because any good hack and slash game is essentially a rhythm
game.
Yeah, like
without
a Devil May Cry and a Bayonetta is all about, okay, like Bayonetta is quite forgiving with when your button presses are, but you know, Devil May Cry, if you're playing it properly, is like this button now there, now there, now there when this lands. It is a rhythm game. It just doesn't have that underlying rhythm as sort of a mechanic. So
I'm gonna give a good idea to the Sekiro mod community here quickly. Add a soundtrack to that game. You're welcome.
Shit, I'd
Can you imagine that? Yeah,
I'd fucking play that. Oh my god! Like all of your attacks are to a rhythm. Or to the sound. Oh my
that'd be
god!
Cool. Make it happen. Thank you in advance.
I think, like, I would love that idea, but that kind of also highlights why something like this needs to be designed from the ground up. Because, like, in the case of Hi-Fi Rush, not only do your attacks land on the beat, enemy attacks land on the beat. So you have a sort of predictability to, if you are really in tune with where the beat is currently, you know exactly when an enemy attack is coming, and you kind of know where you can move around and do dodges and initiate your own attacks. But at the same time, you can't initiate your attack off the beat and expect yours to land first, because yours lands at the same time. So it's a risk reward kind of conundrum that I think the more I play, the more I'll get more comfortable with it and more in tune. But it is more of I have to think about this more proactively rather than just button mashing. You know what I mean? The button mashing actually feels pretty bad, because like you attack and it almost feels like there's a delay on your attack landing, because it's obviously, if you've attacked right after the beat's hit, you have to wait a whole beat for your attack to actually come down and hit an enemy. So it actively discourages you from trying to do that. doesn't stop you entirely. Like you can definitely play the game that way, but it feels weird if you do.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's good. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm like always keen for smaller projects like this from big studios. And I'm glad that it's getting some success. It seems to be selling extremely well on Steam and just has a really good positive reception to it. Some great reviews already. So yeah, some
Good
people
on
calling it like a Game of the
Tango.
Year standout for
Nice. And we're
you
only
know
in
for
Jan.
2023 already. Yeah, so it's cool. There's a robot cat too. So
I mean,
always
when
a plus.
they had that in the trailer, I was like, well, say no more.
It was a robot
Your game
cat
can be
cleaning,
anything. It doesn't matter.
robot cat cleaning its butt while robots are looking at it, trying to figure out whether they should
Amazing.
attack it. Yeah, it's great. I mean, 10 out of 10 right there. What more do you need in a game?
Nice. So that is Hi-Fi
Hi-Fi Rush. Play that.
On
Play
Game
it.
Pass.
It's on Game Pass. Easy.
Game Pass. Cool.
Easy days. And if you don't have an Xbox, it's on PC on Steam. Done.
Nice.
It's not on PS5, sorry.
That would be hilarious. Isn't it weird that, like you said earlier, Ghostwire Tokyo isn't on Xbox,
Mm-hmm.
but their brand new game is on Xbox before Ghostwire
yeah.
Tokyo has been put on Xbox.
If I'm
I
not
find it
mistaken,
very
Ghostwire
strange.
Tokyo can only come to Xbox like in
Isn't it
March or April.
Yeah,
it's
but
like a
still.
year. It's weird. Listen, this to me means that Tango Gameworks kind of shifted the argument of like, when is Ghostwire Tokyo coming to Xbox? And here's a much better game that you can play in the meantime. like Ghostwire's coming,
That's
cool, whatever.
hilarious.
It's going to be on Game Pass. But have you heard of Hi-Fi Rush? This shit's
come
lit.
on.
Like, yeah. Apparently,
great.
there was a designer at Tango who pitched this game straight after The Evil Within 2. Like, this was his dream game to work on, and they've been, I want to say working on it, but who knows the size of the team working on it for the past couple of years, because they
this
went into
isn't-
Ghostwire then.
This isn't something that happened in the last 10 months.
No.
it's clearly been-
A lot of people are like, wow, they made this in a year after Ghostwire. It's like, no, that does not happen.
Come on,
Like,
guys.
especially a game of this quality does not happen
Yeah.
like that. So
It's such a-
maybe, it didn't have the full, maybe it was like 10% of the studio working on this, but it's cool to see that they're able to do these little side projects
yeah,
while working on something bigger, because it probably means they're working on their next big thing outside of
exactly.
Ghostwire. Yeah.
Yeah.